If you're in the market for a new family vehicle and you can't quite decide between going with gas or fully electric, a plug-in hybrid vehicle may be the best compromise. Unfortunately, if you're also in need of a vehicle that can carry 7 or even 8 passengers, your choices are very few. However, for 2024, Mazda is entering that space with the introduction of this model here. This is the 2024 Mazda CX-90 PHEV. What the PHEV means is it essentially replaces the turbocharged inline-6 that we tested a couple months ago with a plug-in hybrid 4-cylinder powertrain offering up to 26 miles of electric-only range, courtesy of a nearly 18 kilowatt-hour battery pack. So as you can see, this week Mazda has loaned us the top trim spec. This is a CX-90 PHEV in the Premium Plus trim level. We're going to live with it for a full week. We're going to put it through our usual battery of tests. At the end of this video, we're going to see, has Mazda managed to create the perfect family hauler for those of you who need to carry up to 8 people and plug it in? Stay tuned to find out. Now, before we start talking about the new CX-90 in general, I thought I'd pop the hood because the highlight of this review, this updated review, is the powertrain. This is one of the few plug-in hybrid SUVs out there that carries up to 8 people. Now, as you can see underneath this hood and this rather attractive looking plastic cover, which Mazda gives you the option to actually lift up if you'd like, and you can see the actual engine. You can see there's actually a ton of space underneath here because this platform is a rear drive architecture that's designed to accommodate an inline 6. But let's go ahead and talk about the powertrain specs, because unlike the Turbo S that I tested a couple of months ago, this model here is designed to be the middle powertrain. It slots between the Turbo, which offers up to 280 horsepower, or the Turbo S, which offers up to 340 horsepower. So this combines a naturally aspirated Skyactiv G direct injection 4-cylinder engine, a 2.5 liter that delivers up to 189 horsepower on its own. It's augmented by a powerful single electric motor that's sandwiched between the engine and the 8-speed automatic transmission. The electric motor on its own delivers around 173 horsepower and 199 pound-feet of torque. The gas engine delivers 192 pound-feet of torque on its own. When you combine the outputs of the two powertrain sources, you get a maximum of 323 horsepower. That's on premium gas. It drops to 319 if you guys put regular, and 369 pound-feet of torque. That is the same torque figure as the Turbo S inline 6. Now, as I mentioned earlier, 8-speed automatic transmission, but the torque converter has been replaced with a wet clutch system. We'll test out the transmission later on when during the driving scene. And this vehicle has a 17.8 kilowatt-hour battery pack that delivers up to 26 miles of electric-only range. Now, of course, that range is going to be great for those of you who drive around town. And this vehicle also has around a 18.5-gallon fuel tank, so you're looking at around 490 miles of range, total range. That's what Mazda tells us. I've been averaging around 430 to 450 in my actual real-world testing. The company does not quote 0 to 60 times, but we got 6.2 seconds in the Turbo S. We'll see what we can get in this vehicle in our actual testing. It has a top speed of around 118 miles an hour, and this model does tow, but it doesn't tow quite as much as the inline 6 at around 3,500 pounds compared to 5,000 pounds. As this car sits, it weighs in at just over 5,200 pounds. It's about 300 pounds heavier versus the Turbo S that I tested a couple months ago. But let's go ahead and close up the hood and talk about the exterior styling. Now, as you guys know, the CX-90 replaces the CX-9 in Mazda's lineup. So you can kind of think of this as kind of like a 3rd generation CX-9 or a 4th generation CX-9, but Mazda doesn't like to say that because this is an all-new platform that's a rear drive architecture. It's considerably bigger on the outside. It offers way more luxury and technology. It's introducing a lot of firsts for Mazda. You can see the headlight design has their evolution of their Kodo design language. All CX-90s have full LED headlights as standard, where you have an LED low and high beam, adaptive swiveling LED headlights, an LED turn signal here that kind of goes into the signature Mazda 5-point grille. You can see there's kind of like a chain link fence design with a gloss gray painted accent. There's also some active grille shutters in there. And then down here you can see some more functional and non-functional vents. No fog lights on this vehicle, however. That's where the CX-9 had fog lights. Down here you can see there's a chrome strip with a little bit more functional air vents along with the integrated parking sensor. The Mazda logo here houses the radar sensor for the adaptive cruise. There's no kind of LED light signature that goes around the grille. That's something the CX-9 offered, but they don't have that on the CX-5 or CX-90. But overall, let me know what you guys think of the styling. I think, again, in my first review, I mentioned this is kind of a missed opportunity for Mazda to make this car look a lot different because of the new chassis, but it's still a relatively handsome looking car. Now moving around the side profile, this is actually a very big vehicle. It's on the big end of the 3-row premium or mainstream family SUV segment. Its wheelbase is huge at 122.8 inches long. It's among the biggest in the segment. Its overall length is just shy of 201 inches long. So this is longer than vehicles like the Honda Pilot, the Kia Telluride, the Hyundai Palisade, but about the same size as the Toyota Grand Highlander. Now, unlike the CX-90 Turbo S that I tested a couple months ago, you can see this model here has non-painted side trim along the rocker panels, along the wheel arches. The Turbo S is the only trim CX-90 to get the full paint finish. I kind of like the full paint finish, but it also doesn't look bad with the rhodium white exterior, which is $600 extra with these kind of non-painted gray accents. You can see the wheels. These are the same wheels on the CX-90 Turbo S. It's 21-inch machine finished twin color design with the gloss black. You can see it's riding on a 275 by 45 R21-inch tire. These are the biggest wheels that Mazda has ever put on a vehicle. It's got 13.7-inch rotors at the front and 13.8-inch rotors at the back. 4-wheel independent suspension, but no adaptive dampers or air suspension. Mazda says this car has around 8 inches of ground clearance, which is a fairly good amount considering the class of vehicle. Now you can see this is how you're going to be able to distinguish this as the PHEV. It says PHEV here on the fender badge as opposed to the inline 6 badge that you see on the other trims. And then over here on the side mirrors, you can see it has an integrated turn signal. These are power folding mirrors. You have chrome along the belt line here, along the roof rails, which are low profile. You have a panoramic glass roof, which is included on the higher trims. I wish Mazda would offer like a carbon package to black out all the chrome. That's something I suspect they will do sometime at a later date. Now moving around the rest of the rear profile here, you can see very much feels like an evolution of the CX-9. It has some styling cues from the Mazda 3, of course, with the way that the rear looks. The taillight design kind of has this interesting kind of skinnier shape with the full LEDs for the turn signals, for the brake lights, for the reverse light. Back here you can see it has the same CX-90 all-wheel drive badge. All-wheel drive is going to be standard, by the way. There's no front-wheel drive, or I'm sorry, there's no two-wheel drive version, which is rear drive of the actual CX-90. Back here you can see this is another indication that you have the plug-in hybrid. It has eSkyactiv PHEV badge here instead of the eSkyactiv badge that you'll find on the Turbo S or the inline 6. Down here you can see no visible exhaust tips, which I kind of wish the Turbo S had that, but I'm okay with the plug-in not having that. The other indication, there's a second door here on the side where you plug the vehicle in at the rear quarter panel on the passenger side. Now you can see it has just the standard J1772 plug. Mazda hasn't talked about if they're going to adopt the NACS port. Obviously, this model here doesn't have the ability to fast charge, although it has the plug for it here, the combo plug. That's actually just kind of a false plug, I believe. But the vehicle has a pretty fast onboard charger, 7.2 kilowatt onboard charger, which means you can charge this vehicle from basically 0 to 100% in a little over 2 hours, which is much faster, 3 times faster than what I tested on something like the Mitsubishi Outlander plug-in hybrid, about twice the speed of something like the Kia Sorento plug-in hybrid, and it's pretty similar to the Toyota RAV4 Prime, which again, those vehicles are below, technically below a class. Versus this car, and as I mentioned earlier, 26 miles of electric-only range. But let's go ahead and show you guys the cargo area for this vehicle. Because this CX-90 PHEV comes with a third-person bench, a 3-person bench, you do have a little bit less cargo capacity back here at just under 15 cubic feet, around 14.9. You can see here, unlike the Turbo S, which only sat 2 back here, this actually seats 3. There is a little bit of underfloor storage over here, although there could be more. I'm suspecting Mazda kind of has some packaging here for the electronics and the battery and whatnot. You also have an actual power outlet back here, a 1500 watt inverter, which is nice. You can also, of course, fold down these seats, which if you fold down the seats back here, you can see that expands the cargo capacity to just over 40 cubic feet, which is again a pretty good amount of space. If you fold down the second row entirely, which you can see this model doesn't have the actual console between, you get a maximum of just under 75 cubic feet of space. Now that's pretty good until you look at the fact that the Toyota Grand Highlander offers up to 98 cubic feet of space. This is still about 10 cubic feet less than what you're going to find in something like the Hyundai and Kia Twins, and also the Honda Pilot's going to offer more space along with the Nissan Pathfinder. So let's go ahead and talk about the interior of the 2024 Mazda CX-90 plug-in hybrid. Now, before we get inside, let me show you guys the key fob. As you guys know, this is Mazda's current and newest key fob. It's a fairly large key with the buttons on the side for lock, unlock, power liftgate, panic function. There is no remote start on the fob, but I believe if you have access to the Mazda Connected Services app, you should be able to remote start this vehicle from your smartphone. Now, Mazda does offer a walkaway auto lock feature, so when you have it turned on, you can basically have the key in your pocket, shut the door, it'll beep, and then it'll lock as you walk away. The mirrors also can be set to electrically fold in. The door handle is conventional. There's a little sensor pad on the outside that also can lock the door. Touch the back of the door handle, and that will unlock the door for you and also unfold the mirrors. Now, my tester here with the rhodium white has the black leather Napa interior with kind of like the contrasting copper stitching with the copper accents here on the seats. These are an 8-way power adjustable driver and passenger seat along with a 2-person memory. These are also heated and ventilated seats. If you guys don't like the black interior, you can also get a white in Napa leather interior. Now, if you guys like that tan interior that I showed you on my last CX-90 review, that is only available on the Turbo S trim level. So you either get white or black, or you can also get a beige if you guys step down to the premium trim. This is the premium plus trim. Now you can see the door panel has a soft touch injection molded plastic. I like the aluminum look trim. This is, I believe, faux, but you can see here padded leather here where your elbows would rest. Window controls have a nice high quality feel. They're kind of accented in chrome. It's one touch up down for all 4, which is nice. You have a power folding mirror switch. Down here it is hard touch plastic, but you can see there's some additional storage. There's also a 12 speaker Bose stereo in this car, which sounds okay. It's not the best sounding audio in this segment, but it certainly gets the job done. Now, with 8 inches of ground clearance, this car has a really easy step-in height, which is important for those of you, again, who are looking for that ease of accessibility with an SUV. Shutting the door has a nice solid sounding thunk. Remember, this is an all new rear drive architecture. Now, that's the newest Mazda chime you heard. The start stop button here is mounted nice and high. It's not blocked by the steering wheel, which is nice. And then starting up the plug-in hybrid version, you can hear, unlike the Turbo S, which is a mild hybrid, it still had a traditional starter sequence. This model here, you can see just words to life with the chime. It says ready down there in the lower right-hand corner of the 12.3-inch infotainment cluster. That's actually standard equipment on all plug-in hybrids. That's optional on the gas turbo inline 6. And then you can see here when you guys go for the premium plus trim, you'll get the bigger 12.3-inch Mazda Connect head unit. Now, if you guys step down to the premium or the preferred trim, you'll have a slightly smaller 10.25-inch display, which I actually haven't had a chance to see. The 12.3 I think is a good size. It's matched well to the interior footprint this car has. And you can see also there's a heads-up display up there. You have soft touch injection molded plastic on this upper portion here. And then you can see here on the steering wheel, I really love that beige steering wheel, the tan steering wheel that you got on the Turbo S that I tested a couple of months ago. This is just the black steering wheel, which it's standard even when you guys go for the white interior. You do have leather stitching across the steering wheel, or it's a leather wrapped wheel, which is nice. No contrast stitching. I kind of wish that it was the same contrasting color that you find in the rest of the cabin here. The wheel itself has a manual tilt and telescoping adjustment, so you can see there's a good amount of adjustability and range. However, the Turbo S had a power tilt telescoping wheel, which is nice. It was memory linked as well. You have paddles on the wheel to control the 8-speed auto. You can see there's the information display. It's fully digital. Which I have it in EV mode now. It's purple. The controls here for the steering wheel, you can see there's your controls for your audio and your phone information. You can see the Mazda radar cruise control. However, this car is missing the full active lane keep assist that you get in the Turbo S Premium Plus. There was another button here on the Turbo S, but this car is lacking that. It does have lane departure alert, but it won't actively keep you centered in the lane on the highway. So that's something that Mazda only offers on the Turbo S trim level, which is kind of a disappointment. Now, going over here to this display, if I switch the drive mode, you can see going to the off-road setting, it kind of gives you a software tune. It also gives you a slightly different look to the instrument panel, which is kind of nice. You can see there's also a normal function here, which removes the tachometer and gives you like a power meter. I have it set to show the 3 traditional dials. If I turn on the adaptive cruise, you can see it goes to a different display where it shows you more driver assistance information. And then going to the sport mode here, this is actually going to kick the engine on when you go into sport mode, or at least it did earlier. Now it's not, which is kind of nice. Again, I can sit here with the air conditioning on and the engine is totally off, which is not something you can do in the Turbo Inline 6. The air conditioning would shut off when the gas engine would shut off, which was super annoying, especially when it was very, very hot outside. Now, I love this kind of leather. This is the Napa leather on the seats, on the dashboard here with the kind of contrasting stitching. You can see there's triple zone automatic climate control. And then there's a wireless phone charging pad here, which it doesn't always work well. You can see it's blinking red to show that my iPhone 14 Pro Max is not charging, but it fits there pretty nicely. This shifter controls the 8-speed auto. It's an interesting shifter in the sense that when you go to reverse, you kind of pull this little trigger and then kick it over to the side that goes into reverse. You can see the backup camera, the 360 camera looks pretty good in this car. You can also change it in terms of different views and whatnot. You can also do a wide angle view, which is nice. Going into the forward view, you can see there's kind of a really cool see-through look with a top-down 360 view. It's got one of the best resolution that I've seen in the non-luxury space. So bravo on Mazda there. You can see drive, you pull all the way back, and then reverse, push forward, and then you have to make sure you go to the left to go into park. Now, I mentioned earlier in my first review that I complained about, I think it's kind of unnecessary. Mazda's kind of trying to reinvent the wheel here. I feel like some people may end up thinking this is park, but you have to go over to the left and push the trigger to go into park. Well, if you own this vehicle, I suspect you'll probably get used to it, which is nice. You can see Apple CarPlay is accessed via here. Now, remember, this is not a touchscreen if you guys are trying to use the native system. You have to kick this little wheel to the right. That brings up the CarPlay, which you can see now it's a touchscreen, and it looks pretty good. Great quality and resolution. There are some unused portions here on the screen, but again, you kind of get used to it. Going back to the Mazda system here, you can see it has embedded GPS, which most of you are going to use your phone embedded GPS anyways. I don't love the Mazda software, but you can go into the settings here. You can change a couple of things. The graphics look okay. It just needs a redo. It just needs to be a touchscreen, and Mazda needs to pull the screen forward a little bit to kind of account for that fact that people are going to be touching the screen. Down here you can see you have a cup holder, which is a good size. You have this aluminum look trim from the door. It's on the lower portion here, which I like how it's not piano black plastic. You have a volume knob here, electronic parking brake. You have shortcut buttons here. You have your actual camera button there where you can access the 360 camera if you'd like. That's your charge mode here. If you push that, the gas engine will come on. It'll charge the vehicle. You can set it up to a certain percentage. Padded center console area. You can see it's two levels or two different ways to open it. You have two USB-C charging ports. It's a little bit of a shallow center console. The storage in this car is not as good as the Grand Highlander or the Pilot. So it kind of shows again what Mazda is prioritizing. You have these seats here, which are Napa leather. They're 12-way heated and ventilated seats with memory on the driver's side. The cool function works wonderfully. The heat function works wonderfully, but I don't like how hard feeling the seat feels. So try the seats out for yourself. See if they're okay on your end. You can see glove compartment. It's a damped and lined with felt. It's actually a pretty deep storage compartment. You have an auto dimming rearview mirror, which is frameless. You can also get a digital camera rearview mirror, which is $800 upcharge versus the from the dealer versus the standard side or auto dimming rearview mirror. You can see big panoramic glass roof, which is included on the premium trim and up. It also includes a retractable sunshade. You have LED map lighting and a little bit of ambient LED lighting in here, which is only in the footwells and in the door pockets and whatnot. I wish Mazda would do more intricate ambient lighting where you could change the color, but overall you can see the interior quality feels solid. The black isn't my first choice. I really prefer the lighter interior colors, but the tech in here is fine. The Mazda software just needs to be upgraded. I love the fact that it has a fully digital instrument cluster, and the visibility in here is also pretty good. Moving to the back seat of the plug-in hybrid, this is why some of you may be considering this car, because it is the only 7 and 8 passenger 3-row SUV you can buy with a plug that's a plug-in hybrid. Now you can see the Turbo or the Premium Plus includes these manual retractable shades. You have padded touch or soft touch materials here with the aluminum trim padded over here. And then when you guys go for the Premium and up trims, you'll have the captain's chair. So this lowers the capacity to 7 versus 8 on the preferred trim. I love the way the seats look. They're pretty much identical to the front seats. They are a 4-way manual adjustment. You can also fold the seats down if you'd like, but let me go ahead and get inside and show you guys the second row space first. Now, once I'm back here, you can see this is where I'd have the seat to drive for my driving position. At 5'7", there's around 39.5 inches of legroom back here. That's perfectly fine. However, some competitors that are non-plug-in hybrids offer around 40 to 42 inches of legroom. So the Mazda also gives you the ability to slide the seat forward, which you need to do to give the third row passengers enough space, because this is with the seat all the way back, which it has a good amount of legroom. It has a good amount of headroom space for me. I'm 5'7". You have rear seat air vents back here, which is definitely a nice touch. You have USB-C charging ports. You have your own climate control function, 3-level heated seats, but you can see there's an empty button here for cooled seats. That's the only way to get the cooled seats in the second row, is to go for the Turbo S Premium Plus trim level. That's the only trim to get it. You have 2 storage cubbies here. And then there's also a little flip out area for cup holders here, which are kind of cheap, and I don't know how usable they're going to be. You don't have that center console area like you get in the Turbo S, but it kind of gives you the pass through to get into the third row. Now I'm going to actually move this second row seat up slightly to like that point over there to show you guys the space. Let me get into the third row, which Mazda says the third row has around 30 inches of legroom, which isn't a lot. It's around 3 to 4 inches less than its competitors that are non-plug-in hybrid SUVs. But you can see, slide that forward, the seat moves out of the way a pretty good amount, so you can kind of climb back here into the third row. Now I'm gonna actually move this third row all the way back, which, as you can see, that's with it slid forward slightly, and this is with it all the way back, which it literally crushes my knees. Now, unlike the Turbo S, there is a middle seat here. I don't know why there's a middle seat in this model here and not on the Turbo S, but you can see there is, you know, sort of some space over there. Once I get back here, you can see you have USB-C charging ports. It's all hard touch plastic back here. You have cup holders, and you do have rear seat air vents back here, which is definitely nice, although it's mounted kind of low. I think it should have been mounted in the ceiling. USB over here, and then you can see with that seat slid forward, there is enough space back here for somebody my height to sit back here. But then again, look at the difference in the legroom for the second row. So kind of keep that in mind. That's with it all the way back. There literally was no room for my feet underneath the seat. It was kind of crushing it. So you do need to ask this passenger to move the seat forward. But once you're back here, you can see it's pretty good. And then you can see here, this would be a tight squeeze here for average size adults to fit 3 across, but at least there is that third seat belt here. So I think that Mazda should have just made it a 3 passenger for every model, which is kind of nice. But overall, you can see the headroom space is actually pretty good for somebody my height, but if you're over 6 feet, this might be tight. So keep in mind, this is probably reserved for small children and average size adults, but keep the trips to a shorter amount. So here we are in the first ever Mazda SUV with a plug, or technically a plug-in hybrid powertrain. What makes the CX-90 super unique in the segment is the fact that there are very little plug-in hybrid SUVs with a third row seat. I mean, there's the Mitsubishi Outlander PHEV and the Kia Sorento PHEV, but those vehicles are technically a class below this car. They're like a foot shorter in overall length. They have very, very tiny third rows. So this car is definitely unique, and Mazda positions the PHEV as the middle powertrain offering, because with 323 horsepower, it's slightly less powerful than the Turbo S that I tested about 3 months ago. And it's also more powerful than the Turbo, which I haven't had a chance to drive with its 280 horsepower. Now, in terms of the range, 26 miles is what the EPA rates it at. It's showing a full charge right now at around 30 miles. I'll let you guys know what I actually got in my real world testing toward the end of this driving scene. But let's go ahead and see what we can get 0 to 60 wise. I got 6.5 seconds the last time I tested this car out in San Francisco. 6.2 for the Turbo S when I had one back home on this exact stretch of road. So let's go ahead and see what we can get here. It's in sport mode. We'll go ahead and floor it, or brake torque it. Definitely feels quick thanks to that instantaneous electric motor torque. Whew, 6.12, so it's actually a smidge faster than the Turbo S, which I kind of suspected, because the Turbo S, while it is a mild hybrid, it doesn't have the kind of off-the-line immediacy that this car has, because remember, this has a much more powerful electric motor with a 17.8 kilowatt-hour battery pack. It delivers 173 horsepower and 199 pound-feet of torque from the electric motor itself, and that's available instantly. So it kind of, you know, gives you that off-the-line surge that you're looking for. And then of course the gas engine will take over in the higher revs, or the higher speeds, to give you that power. I mean, every time I put my foot down, this thing just takes off, and I love that feeling. And that's kind of where the PHEV actually feels like the quicker option in day-to-day driving. Now let's just try it here on this flat, or this slightly more uphill section. And this time I'm not going to brake torque it, I'm just going to floor it. The sound is also interesting. 6.6 here, and again, it is plenty fast. So that's basically what you can expect in real world testing, or in real world driving. You just basically put your foot down, because most people aren't going to brake torque it, and you're going to get 6.5 seconds 0 to 60. Now that time, the quickest time I got for this is actually faster than the Mitsubishi Outlander PHEV by about a half a second. This car is about a full second faster than the last Kia Sorento PHEV. So bravo Mazda, you have the quickest accelerating plug-in hybrid 3-row SUV in the segment, which wasn't really that hard to achieve, but it's nice to see that Mazda, even though they are a small Japanese car company, can build a world-class PHEV. Now, I will mention that there are moments about this powertrain that I do feel Mazda has a little bit of work to do with the transition between a gas and to the electric powertrain. It's not the smoothest, but it's also not the worst that I've driven. So this feels far better versus the last Mitsubishi plug-in hybrid Outlander that I tested, where the transition is much more seamless. And this car also gives you better electric-only acceleration and quicker acceleration in the EV only, which I'll test out in just a moment. But in terms of handling, the CX-90, remember, is built off of a rear drive architecture, and this car's steering is typical Mazda. It's very sporty feeling steering where it's heavy, and it also transmits a good amount of road feel. The suspension feels firm. That's where I do have an issue with this car in terms of family friendliness. The ride is a little bit on the firmer side, and maybe it's just me getting older where I'm expecting these SUVs to be a little bit better or a little bit softer in the ride quality. So maybe it's just kind of my, personal taste there, where I want these vehicles to have a better feel in that regard. But I've switched it back into EV mode because I want to test out what this car is like to drive in pure electric only mode. Now, this vehicle only has 173 horsepower in EV mode, and if it has a click point that once you go past that click point in the accelerator, it actually will wake up the gas engine. So we'll see if I can actually get up to 60 on this last stretch here and see what we can get. I think the last time I did this back in San Francisco, it got like 13 or just under 14 seconds. So I'm not entirely sure this car will be able to reach 60 miles an hour on this kind of like short-ish stretch of road, but we'll give it a try anyways. It's in full EV mode right now. It's got like a 90% charge, and we'll just put our foot down here. It actually does shift, which is a really strange feeling. Come on. 13.5 seconds there, so it's pretty much identical to the last time that I tested this. And again, this car only has 173 horsepower in EV mode, so most of the times you're not going to be doing that. But what I will say, however, is like when you're just driving the car normally, it's in EV mode now, I'll just put my foot down. It actually feels fast enough. What's weird is the shifts. It's because the electric motor is sandwiched between the engine and the transmission. This is an 8-speed torque or automatic transmission, no torque converter. It has a wet clutch, just like on the Turbo S. I find that the transmission feels better in this powertrain application because of the electric's instantaneous torque, which is definitely nice. In the Turbo S, with the turbo lag that you kind of get with the 6-cylinder, the transmission kind of got a little clunky at times. I feel some of the clunkiness here, but it's masked by the extra torque that you get from the electric motor, so that's kind of an improvement. The EV part also gives you an interesting sound. It's actually genuine. I believe that's what Mazda told me on the drive, is put my foot down here. It almost sounds like an engine, but it's actually the electric motor kind of whirring away, making all these kind of strange noises, which is super weird and super interesting. But overall, I found myself driving this car in the EV only mode. It actually prioritizes EV only when you first start the vehicle up, and you can set that here in the infotainment system where it'll prioritize that. And in day-to-day driving, it actually has enough power, which is nice, because once the gas engine does come on, when I put my foot down completely, it says EV mode canceled. It makes that fake augmented sound, which I kind of actually like the fake sound because it actually sounds pretty decent. I actually think it sounds better than the inline 6. Call me crazy. The inline 6 kind of sounds super weird at times. I don't love the way that thing sounds in the inline 6 mode, but let's try it here again. Oof, come on. Definitely creating that fake noise, which is weird. 6.4 there. I didn't brake torque it, so you will get the quickest acceleration time in sport mode when you brake torque it, but still 6.5 seconds in everyday driving is fast enough for most people, and it matches that of the Turbo S inline 6. So interesting, the fact that, Mazda positions this powertrain below the inline 6 Turbo S, but in terms of real world performance, we're actually seeing this to get similar acceleration as that top engine. I'll be curious to see if I can ever get my hands on a base turbo to see what the performance is like for that powertrain. But now we've switched back to EV mode. Let's talk about the fuel efficiency or in the range. This car was showing at a max 31 miles of full electric range from the trip computer. It's rated at 26. In my week's worth of testing, I did average it out at around 28, just shy of 30 miles of full electric range, which is acceptable. Could it be better? Yes. I kind of wish Mazda would increase the battery size to be around 20 kilowatt hours. I would like to see this car at around 35 to 40 miles of EV only range. So it just needs a little marginal improvement, because that's what I got in something like the Toyota RAV4 Prime or the Mitsubishi Outlander PHEV. Keep in mind, those vehicles are smaller vehicles. They're also significantly lighter. This vehicle weighs 5,200 pounds. In terms of fuel efficiency, when you have the vehicle's battery charged, you're going to get the best gas mileage in that range. Like, so on the highway, when it's running in hybrid mode with a charge on the battery pack, This vehicle should do about 56 mpge. That number really is kind of useless to me because it's a kind of a equivalent mpg when you factor in the EV only. The trip computer was showing around 47 mpge. Which is significantly better versus when I didn't have it charged up. It was only averaging around 27 mpg, which is actually about 4 mpg better than the Turbo 6, or the Turbo S inline 6 that I tested for a full week. That averaged around 23 in mixed driving. On the highway, this also got around 26, 27 mpg. That's where the Turbo S gets better highway efficiency, because that model with the inline 6 will do around 29, almost 30 miles to the gallon, thanks to, of course, less weight and the fact that it doesn't have the drag from the electric motor. It's running primarily on the gas engine in that instance. Now, if you put it into a charge mode, there's a charge mode here where it'll actually charge up the battery to a certain percentage, up to 100% if you like. That's a very inefficient way to charge this vehicle's battery pack. It actually drops the MPG to 23 miles to the gallon. So that's something to keep in mind if you guys actually don't plan to plug this in. You have to plug in a PHEV vehicle to get the maximum efficiency, and that's kind of where this car is a beauty, because it only takes like 2 hours to charge this thing on a level 2 at my home. It's a very fast charger, much faster than the 6.5 hours that it takes the Mitsubishi Outlander PHEV. That vehicle's just bloody slow to charge. So overall, I'm pleasantly surprised with the PHEV. I actually think I might prefer this over the inline 6, especially for day-to-day driving. Yes, the inline 6, has the bragging rights of having 6 cylinders, but I suspect this model here will actually be the powertrain that most CX-90 buyers are going to try to go for. So after spending a full week with the plug-in hybrid version of the all-new Mazda CX-90, pretty much everything that I like about the regular CX-90 in the Turbo S form is carried over into the PHEV. However, with Mazda allowing you to have some electric-only range, the instantaneous torque that you get from the electric motors, and up to 26 miles of EV-only range, while that is on the lower end of the scale, it is, again, one of the very few, actually the only 3-row plug-in hybrid SUV that seats up to 8 people. Remember, you have to step down to the base preferred trim to get the bench seat in the second row that will allow this thing to seat up to 8 people. Now, obviously, as you guys know, the electric 3-row SUV segment is expanding. However, most manufacturers are skipping the plug-in hybrid and hybrid portion to go to a fully electric route. So if you guys aren't quite ready to go fully electric, and trust me, I know there are a lot of you out there that aren't quite ready, a plug-in hybrid makes perfect sense. And as you guys saw from the driving of this vehicle, it drives extremely well. Mazda is always focused primarily on driving dynamics, driving matters, and this is definitely one of the best driving 3-row SUVs out there. The ride quality is on the firmer side. I would prefer if Mazda would do an adaptive suspension, although I need to drive this car with the smaller 19-inch wheels to see how much softer the ride quality is. The 21s are definitely on the firmer side. The interior space, while obviously comparing this car to something like the Toyota Grand Highlander Hybrid Max is going to show the weaknesses in the interior space and the cargo space, the third row is a snug fit. But if you're comparing it to other 3-row plug-in hybrid SUVs like the Mitsubishi Outlander PHEV and the Kia Sorento PHEV, this has the most interior space because it's a considerably larger vehicle and it's also a much more expensive car. The interior tech, I think Mazda's tech, the software, the Mazda native software needs some upgrades. I don't like how it's not a touchscreen, but at least the wireless CarPlay and the Android Auto is now a touchscreen. It even works, as you guys saw, when you're actually moving and driving the vehicle, which is a nice touch. The seats on this car are a little bit too firm for my taste, but try them out for yourself. Remember, the seats in the Premium Plus and the Turbo S are a little bit more plush, if I remember correctly, because it's a slightly more upgraded premium Nappa leather that's quilted as opposed to just the Nappa leather in this model here. But really, if you're looking to get your hands on the CX-90 PHEV, this is where the Mazda also has been doing surprisingly well. I've been seeing more and more of these out there on the roads, and that's because they're actually on dealer lots, which means you could probably get your hands on it, although I'm not entirely sure how it is for the plug-in. The Turbo inline 6 is probably relatively easy, but if you guys want the plug-in hybrid, it's going to start at around $47,500 for a base premium trim, and they're pretty well equipped, although you'll have the smaller infotainment system. Those of you who probably want, a little bit more equipment can step it up to the premium trim, which is around $52,000. That trim is going to be priced around the same as the Sorento plug-in hybrid and the Mitsubishi Outlander plug-in hybrid. This model here takes it up one notch with the Premium Plus trim to the bigger 12-inch display, the upgraded stereo system, the captain's chairs, of course, and This model here with destination and the upcharge for the color is going to come to just under $59,000, around $58,900, which is again a pretty good chunk of money, but it's about the same price as the last Toyota Grand Highlander Hybrid Max Platinum that I tested, which was literally last month. That was also around 60 grand. It's a hybrid, but it doesn't offer electric only range. Again, this is one of the few out there, although Toyota is going to be coming out, or Lexus is going to be coming out with a plug-in hybrid version of the TX, which will combine a V6 engine with a hybrid powertrain, which we haven't heard much in terms of specs for that yet. I'm hoping I'll be able to drive it sometime by the end of this year or sometime early next year. We'll hear a little bit more about the plug-in hybrid. But again, it's a super unique entry in the segment. So Mazda can kind of charge whatever they want in that regard. But I have to say, I think they've priced it relatively well. And if you guys are looking for something unique, a little bit sportier, and you're okay with not having the most interior space in the segment, but again, it's one of the few out there, I definitely recommend putting this at the top of your list. And for me personally, I would probably end up going with this powertrain over the Turbo S Inline 6, just because it's a better powertrain to drive in everyday driving. But with all that said, hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on the brand new 2024 Mazda CX-90 PHEV. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.